Welcome to Flux Effects tutorials. Today we're going to look at an eye replacement using cat's eyes, demon eyes, or really any eye replacement. You can just change the color and this setup will work. It's really flexible. So we jumped into After Effects and we're going to go ahead and get started. So let's go ahead and create a new composition. I'm going to work in high def, so 1920 by 1080. I'll call it cat's eye tutorial. And we want to make sure the frame rate matches our video, which is 24 frames a second. And we'll go ahead and I'm using a sequence, so I'm going to go ahead and grab it here. I just called it cat's eye, and I'm going to bring it down. So this is my raw footage that we'll be modifying. I created the background using some stuff from iClone and some green screen with the girl in the picture. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So first thing we're going to do is we need to track this. So we're going to go into track in Mocha AE under animation. And when you get there, give your project a name. I'm just going to call it cat's eye tutorial. Make sure your frame rate matches and the number of frames so that you know that everything was interpreted correctly. And here we go. So since it's most important at the end when it zooms in, I'm going to go ahead and bring it all the way over to the last clip, and we'll track backwards. Grab your X-spline tool, and I'm going to draw around the right eye. I'm going to go ahead and capture the eyebrow because I believe it'll give it some more information and give me a better track. You can try tracking just the eye if you have a preference. This worked best for me with this footage. And there we go. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I'm on the track tab, and I need to focus on the minimum percent pixels used. I always bring that up to 90. It'll take a little more time, but it's worth it. And then when I come over here to the motion, I don't need the perspective for this one, and I just really can just start tracking. We're good to go. So I just click on the track backwards, so you can go frame by frame or just have it track. I will track it all the way to the beginning. This way I can pick my start point, and if I want to do something else with it later, I don't have to go back and start over. So I'm just gonna, because essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a null that's going to follow the eye. So once it tracks all the way, I can take a look, and I'm watching everything, and it looks like the track is holding really steady. This will work. So I'll go to export tracking data, and then I want the position, scale, and rotation because we're not using corner pin here. We're going to be creating a null object, and I copy to clipboard, and it's tracked. It's that straightforward. So then I come here, I take layer, new, and null object, and I'll go ahead and rename that so I can keep track of everything, and this will be the right eye null. And after I rename it, I'm going to select it. I'm going to make sure that we're all the way back on the first frame, and I'm just going to hit Control V, and there you go. You can see that the null's been created. So next thing I need a solid for a mask. So I'm going to just create a new solid under Layer, New Solid, and I'm going to call this the right eye mask. And just click OK. The color doesn't matter. In fact, I'm going to turn it off. And I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing I did in a Mocha. I'm going to go ahead and over to the last frame since it's the most important. I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm going to select the pen tool, and I'm going to create a mask. Make sure you're on Roto Bezier. It'll give you a nice smooth curve around the eye. And I'm going to just create an outline around the whites of the eye. Then I can make some fine adjustments. I'm not going to get crazy with this. It actually looks fine. Plus, I don't want to take too much time for the video. So then I'm going to go down under the track mat. And for the original footage, I'm going to just select alpha invert it. And I'm going to feather the mask about 6 pixels. And there you go. You can see the eye is cut out. Looks good. Next step we're going to do is undo the track mat, make sure we can, and we're going to just see if we need to make any minor adjustments to the mask using the mask path. So I'm just going to go along every, 10, 15, 20 frames, whatever, depending on how much things are moving. And I'm just going to make minor edits to the mask so that as it goes forward, everything will stay looking good. and it's pretty straightforward, and you can see it's really quick. I've seen other methods people try. This one it takes almost no time. So I'd rather just tweak it in this manner. You can see we're just creating keyframes with the mask path combined with the null. Otherwise, I've got to go back, and I'm going to spend a lot more time working with the null, and it's not really going to add any value and just take more time. So we just keep working our way backwards. I'm going to go all the way back, as I mentioned. This way I have the template for whatever I want to do going forward. If you go just outside the limits of the white, you'll get a really nice roto on this, and you really won't have to do anything more with it. So there we go, that looks good. The reason I'm not working with it cut out is I want to be able to see the white, so I know that the mask lines up with the actual eye. Otherwise, I could end up making the roto larger than intended. So this is, again, just easier. When we go back into the track mat and change it to alpha inverted, it'll take out the whites of the eye and the pupil. So now I go back under track mat for the original footage, use alpha inverted, which will now use the mask located above it, and there you go. I mean, that looks pretty solid, I would say, and really just took 2 minutes. So there you go. So the next thing is you can only use the track mat for the layer directly above. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually pre-compose this whole thing so that we can create another track mat for the left eye. So it's pretty easy. Select all the layers, go over to layer, pre-compose, make sure you're moving all the attributes, give it a name. Doesn't really matter. I'll just call it, I guess, cat's eye pre-comp, maybe identify the right eye. There we go. All right, great. Now just click OK. Move everything over, and now we can do the exact same process for the left eye. One thing that's very important to note is you're not going to be able to, if you go up to animation, you're not going to be able to select Mocha. It will be faded out, but it doesn't matter, because the way we're approaching this is we're not making changes. So the original footage and the new pre-comp line up. So now we'll go ahead and run a lot quicker through here. It's the same exact steps. Biggest key is just make sure you turn off your first layer, turn off the cog in the eye, in the eye, so you don't even see the first layer on there. Track it, again, come back in, and yeah, obviously I've sped this up just to, since it's the exact same process, there's literally nothing different about it, and I don't want to spend a lot of your time just going over the same thing. So you can kind of see here, we create the null, and I'd say it looks pretty good. And we get everything lined up. Again, we're just doing it now for the left eye. You can also do this, creating a bunch of masks and cutting everything up, but this is just the simplest way to get the eyes masked out. Make sure you feather everything, pre-comp again. This time it'll be the left eye. And next thing we're going to do is we'll bring the original comp down, and there you go. So first thing I want to point out is you can see that we can bring the eyes back in. This way when we fade them in, it's all the original footage. And we've got an overlay with the eyes cut out on the top layer with the pre-composed layers. So next thing I'm going to do is we're going to bring in the actual eye replacement. In this case, I just called it Demon Eye Only. What I would suggest is just go to, if you go out on the internet and just put Demon Eye PNG and search on Google or Bing or Cat's Eye, you'll come up with a whole lot of different options. The easiest way is just to go grab one. And as you can see here, I had a few different options. I downloaded it and I just picked the one I like. So this is the one I'm going to use. Duplicate the layer, because you need one for the left, one for the right. You don't see them because, well, frankly, because of the overlay. So if we turn off the top layer, we can see where we brought the eyes in, and we will start with the right. So first thing I like to do is I'll go ahead and expose the position, the rotation, and the scale. I'll do it for each one, can do it later. And then you always want to make sure, in this case I want to be on the all the way to the last frame, and then I'm going to go over to the right eye pre-comp, and I'm going to just copy the null, Control C, then go back and Control V. So I'm going to use the same null I created for the pre-comp, for the original mask for the eye. No sense of making it more difficult than it needs to be. And I'll do the exact same thing on the left, and again bring it to the last frame. So we've got both nulls in, so I'll take the one eye that we're going to use for the right, and I'm going to go ahead and position it. Turn off the other one so it doesn't, so that we can focus on just the one thing. And I'm going to play with it. I'm going to angle it so it lines up to the face. You can see other, because since it's a slit, we want it to line up. And then I'm going to pick a size that matches the pupil in this case. I could replace everything, the whites of the eyes and everything. I've chosen not to for this video. And but this, again, the process would be exactly the same. Just try what you like. So got that positioned where I like it. I've got it scaled pretty good. I'll go ahead and keyframe, and now I'm gonna, same thing, I'm gonna work my way backwards, and let me go back. It would help if I went ahead and pick whipped over to the null for the parent. So go ahead over to the right eye null. Now let's try that again, and bring it over, make sure it looks good, make sure everything's lined up, make sure you like the angle. And again, you can do this more or less, with more detail if you're for your final comp. This will get you started, and then you can play around with it and get everything to line up. You'll notice there's a lot of grain in this. It was intentional. We wanted it to have kind of a gritty look, which adds some challenges with regards to tracking and positioning. So but again, was looking for a very specific look here, and sharp and focus was not what we were looking for. And you can see I'm going every 20 frames, just making sure it lines up. That's more than enough. And just make sure we're covering the pupil. If the track didn't pick up the scale just right, you may have to tweak that as well. And you see I'm just playing around with the rotation as she moves her head. And there we go. Just keep lining it up. Work our way all the way back. And we'll make the eyes, like right now I know that everything's sharp, but we'll handle some of the blur, motion blur and stuff before we're done. And we'll get those things lined up with her face, and we'll go ahead and take it all the way back. And it's about right. That looks good. There's a little bit of black around there. Again, I'd probably tweak it more if this wasn't a tutorial. Hey, wonderful. All right, so that one looks good. And if I, you can see if I turn the top layer on, you can see how the eye just is, the eye pupil replacement is shows behind the eyelid. It definitely still looks like it's floating there, and don't worry about that. We're gonna fix that here in a little bit. There we go. So that looks good. So we're gonna do the exact same process for the left eye, and we'll go ahead and turn that one on, turn the overlay off, and go over to the last frame. Now, one of the things you might want to do, because these nulls were taken independent, sometimes they'll scale differently. It's usually not a lot, but it could be a slight difference. So we're going to make sure that everything lines up. All the angles are the same. And I could copy the keyframes or just type in the value. Doesn't matter. Go ahead and click on your stopwatches once you get everything set. You can see the one right now, the one eye is larger, one pupil I mean. So I'm going to go ahead and line those up just so I can make sure they're about the same size. Yeah, that looks about right. Now I'm going to cover the pupil on the left. Once I get that where I want it, I'm going to go ahead and set keyframes, click on the stopwatches for position scale. I'm also going to pick whip over to the left eye null. And we're set. And now we're going to walk it back just like we did for the right eye. And you'll notice that the very first thing is the scale's a little off. So I'm going to fix that. Just adjust it and keyframe it. There we go. I think that's close enough. And I'm just going to work my way back doing the same process. Make sure everything lines up. Pupils are covered. Make sure the angles line up. There we go. Just keep working. And you can start to see what we're doing here. And then what we'll do is once the pupils are replaced, we'll then put a layer over the top to kind of give it that glassy look. You could just do a pupil replacement and add, do the same thing with just the pupils. But again, I want the ability to change the colors and make the eyes glow. So you'll kind of see how I do that here. So anyway, first thing, when you turn the overlay over, it looks good. You can already see though that the eyes are tracking well, and the pupils are tracking well to the eye, and looks pretty good. So I'm happy with that part. So now we're going to go to the next. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab a grunge map. Same thing, just Google grunge map, JPEG, PNG. You're just looking for something to add some specs. Dust would be a really good thing to use here. Once you bring it in this case, we'll use an overlay since it has a white background. And you'll notice we have the top layer turned off. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to move it around till we find an area on here that's going to give me a look with some particles over the front of the eyes. And like I said, for this one I was going for a particular look. Normally I'd recommend using dust. So here, if we rotate this a little bit, there's a nice area there that I think will look good. Let's bring it down. Yeah, that's better. You can scale it up or down, whatever, again, whatever you need for the look you're going for. So here we go. We can play with the opacity on the eyes. It's not bad. Now if we turn the overlay layer over, there you go. You can see how that grunge effect affects the eyes, and then just move it around a little bit. And now you can see it already. It makes the pupils look more part of the eye, and it gives it a depth, makes it look more realistic. We can, at that point, we're going to make an adjustment layer. So if we come over to the effects, and we're going to go ahead and type in curves. And the best way to change the color of the eyes and really keep the whole intent intact is the curves. You can use hue, saturation, tint, things like that, but experiment with them. But in my opinion, they affect the pupil itself more than what I'd like. So in this case, we've done kind of a red looking eye. So you go ahead and drag your red up. You can see it kind of brings the whites, keeps kind of a milky look to it. Doesn't overly affect the grunge map. The pupils continue to glow. I like that. We'll bring the green down a little bit. Try not to make it look too purple. We've kind of got a nice ring around the pupils, which I like. I like that definition. I don't want it to fade too sharply in. I'll just say that go with the look that you prefer when you're trimming these up. You can use Photoshop to trim off the outer ring if you want to make, or or create where it'll feather a little more into the whites of the eye. It just depends on how you want it to look. So when I pull the blue, so we went to blue, and you can see it can really make it look yellow, and I actually kind of like that look. If you really pull the blue down, it creates kind of a yellow, kind of a sickly yellow look. I actually like that. I think, well, for this tutorial, I think I'm going to use that. I'm going to leave that alone and go with more of a yellow. So you can see it's starting slowly but surely. It's starting to come together, and you can see the basis of how we do things. And of course, the first thing you'll notice is the we have to tie the grunge map to the null, or you'll see all the spots moving with the character and moving around as the character moves, and that's not what we want. Need to, before I forget, thank my son's cousin for being willing to work with us on the video. So what we're going to do is we'll go down. I'm going to play with I'm going to go ahead, because we're going to basically just use the opacity to fade things in here, and I'm going to do that around frame 60. So just keyframe the opacity where you want it. If you want to make any changes to how the spots on the eyes look, you can play around. Again, the easiest thing to do is just play around with the opacity a little bit till you get the look you want. And as far as what I'm seeing there, it's good. I would say I got to move the map around a little bit and get a few more spots in the way. So turn over the overlay, and I'll bring there we go. I'll just bring that up, and it's better. Yeah. If we were doing more of a kind of like a witch or a demon, that type, we probably wouldn't want too many spots, but this is meant to be more of a possessed look. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the grunge map, and I'm just going to pick whip it and parent it to the right eye. You'll see a little bit of movement in the left eye because of that approach. I don't think anyone's going to look close enough, but if I was doing the actual final clip, I'd probably have one grunge map for each eye and tie it to that null. Then I'm going to, for fade in, I'm just going to pull everything, the opacity down for all the grunge map, adjustment layers, and the pupils, etc., just down to 0, about 47 frames in. So you can kind of see what's going there. And then I'm going to go up to the, create another adjustment layer for the whole comp. And I'm going to, same thing, I'm going to bring the curves in. I'm going to have it, make sure it's above everything. And in this one, all I'm really going to do is I'm going to adjust contrast. Before I do that, I want to make one more adjustment to the eyes. So I'm going to go back down to the curves layer on the adjustment for the eyes, and I'm going to take the RGB, and I'm going to add a little bit of contrast to it. You can see it helps make the pupils pop a little more. It can bring the, you can see it kind of brings the background down, and I like that. And then I'm going to go back up to the top adjustment layer. I'm going to add some contrast, make some adjustments there to darken everything up, make it look a little more gritty. And again, you'll notice we very intentionally went for a grainy look on this. We really felt that would make this kind of a cool scene. And I have magic bullet looks. You can use lumimetry color adjustments, whatever works for you. I'm going to come in here. I already know I like the classic epic. It just brings out a little bit more of the skin tone that I like. Now, when I first bring it in, it's a little overdone in how it affects the background. So I'm going to drop that down to about a third, because I just wanted to just give it a little bit of a tint to make it look a little more, make her face look a little more realistic. So bringing it kind of back somewhat with all the adjustment layers and the curves that play into this, and I like this. So see, it's kind of working its way through, and you can see the eyes change and things blowing up in the back as she walks through the town. If you want to know, I actually made this the background in iClone, and the explosions and all were done previously in After Effects. And then, of course, we just filmed her on a green screen. All right, so I don't think that's too bad like that. Let's see. If we go down to the adjustment layer for the eyes, let's go ahead and take an effect. Let's add a blur. You can use a Gaussian blur. I always like camera lens blur. I'm going to use like a 2 on that just to provide a little bit of blur. I know the eyes are a little over sharp compared to the scene, but I think I want them to pop, right? Because that's supposed to be the focus of what's going on. She walks through the town and it's just blowing up behind her. So here we go. Love my computer. It'll get there. Just got to process this a little quicker, and you can see how she walks along, and it kind of turns out she's a demon. And it's just going to be. I'm literally using this as part of a little 30-second clip that we're making for fun. And you can see everything tracks really well with her head movement. Looks clean, looks clear. Well, I hope you liked it. Again, we're Reflex Effects Studios, and we appreciate you taking the time to watch this. Have a good day.